Good day, podcast community. PeteKane here, Podcast Pete, and certified high performance coach. Well, we got a special guest on our show. I've been after him for about a year, constantly wearing him down. And there's an old saying, never, never give up. So we're glad to have Colin on the podcast. So, Colin, the people that don't know you, like myself, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Wow. Okay. Good question. Yeah. And I like the never give up. I think that will be a common theme throughout our conversation.
Yes.
Um, my name is Colin. Who I am, man, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Adventure. My dad called me a survivalist the other day.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot there. Christian, follower of Christ. Yeah, there's a lot of different angles you could go there.
Wow.
Um,
That definitely gets us started. So
Yeah, that gets us started. Yeah.
let's start off. Okay. So I want our viewers um, it wasn't too long after I met you. I mean, maybe
Hmm.
6 months that you had an accident. You were
Oh,
climbing.
yeah.
So kind of, tragedy always produces growth.
Mm.
Like going through that pain, that tragedy, what did you learn about yourself?
Yeah, so it kind of answers two things about who I am and what I do. Um, I'm a climber. I do rock climbing and I do tree climbing professionally. Um, and about a little over a year ago, I was in a local gym of ours doing some rock climbing and had a really bad accident. Fell and broke my femur, my left femur, clean in half. Um, Probably some of the worst pain I've ever had in my life, Pete.
Mhm.
Um, and I was thinking about that today, actually. I was like, I'm wondering what Pete's going to ask me. And I think a month prior to that time, I was going through some very heavy emotional pain, a lot of heartbreak. And
Mhm.
I remember going through that, just sitting and praying. I'm like, Lord, make this heartache stop. Like, give me anything else other than that. And lo and behold, careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Um, that breaking your femur will definitely make you forget some heartache. um, but I think what the biggest thing that I learned, like the
Mhm.
most immediate, was gratitude for mobility, being able to just move around and do simple tasks. And at the house I was staying at the time, I had two elderly neighbors on either side of me.
Mhm.
And one would always check up on me. And I just remember being so grateful for one, I'm able to just, you usually don't think about where you're walking.
Mhm.
You don't look at your path ahead of you and plan your route when you're walking. And I had to do that. I had to think about, okay, can I rest here? Can I lean on this? Am I going to be on a crutch? Am I going to be using a cane? Um, are there going to be stairs? Is it going to be wet? Is there debris on the ground? So stuff like
Mhm.
that. That was kind of one of the bigger things that I noticed. And then secondly, going back to my old folks, uh, of just having old people love to talk, and I understand why. Sometimes I think elderly people in our communities are kind of just in their homes, and that's
Mhm.
how I was for maybe about 2 months, 3 months. I was just locked up in my house, and
Mhm.
I had roommates that I could talk to, and people would come and see me and chat with me. Um, but I'm used to moving and grooving and being out. I would wake up at 5:30, be out the door by 6, and then probably be home by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night. So that's usually what my day looked like. It was a
Mhm.
radical change from, okay, I'm getting up at 9 in the morning and I'm going to sit around and read so it was different. So I think a lot of empathy for just people who can't move around as well. Um, and so that was one of the bigger things. And then kind of number three from that of what I've learned is trust in the Lord.
Mhm.
And the way that I learned to trust in the Lord is through our church. There was so much support that came
Mhm.
um, from the people in our church, and I think I remember talking to our we have the same pastor, Pete and I,
Mhm.
David Black. I was talking to him, and I said at that moment I really liked going to our church, but then I started to love going to our church and being
Mhm.
a part of it. There was something deep that started to grow there, and I'm sure that would have happened, but it definitely was kind of a fast track into that. I think
Yeah. I,
don't waste pain.
yeah. I love, well, I didn't realize we had so much in common. Of course, I'm quite a few years older than yourself.
Really, I
You
would have put you at least 20, 30 now.
yeah. Well, I was just at a podcast, and maybe you've met him, but he's been to our church a couple times.
Mhm.
And Alex Bright is his last name. He just shaved his beard like
Yeah,
from
okay.
Sunday to now. So I said, "Hey, you shaved your beard," and so I was asking him about it, and he said, "Yeah, there was a study that said they trust people without beards." So
Oh,
I might be shaving my beard soon.
yeah. I don't know about that. I
Right.
trust a man with a good beard.
Well, we read different articles, but
Sure, sure.
I do want to go back to two things.
Hmm.
I when I had my stroke almost 4 years ago, I never appreciated movement more
Yeah,
when you can't move. I
right.
mean, they would move you every day. They would take you to the bathroom. They did everything. You were just totally dependent on other people. And
Yeah,
I have to do the same thing. I have to watch every single step. So
yeah,
I have to conserve my energy because you have to think about every step. And
yeah.
it's a different mindset. Let me ask you, like, how has your faith grown through a tragic event like that? Because I know people that have broken a femur, not many, but they all say it's the most painful thing they've ever experienced. How did your faith grow?
I think I had two thoughts going through my head. One was not a good thought. Was I am ruined. I work with my in the trades, um, and so there was a lot of fear that I would never be able to recover.
Mhm,
Um, and then on the other end of that, um, there I went back to this conversation that I had with this woman when I was working sometime in college at Lowe's, and she was going through. I was just talking with her, and she kept on saying she's going through a lot of troubles, and she was just saying, "This will pass. Surely this too will pass." And I don't know what it was, but that kept on playing in my head. Like, this is not permanent. Um, and so um, I think, and I know, uh, I think you see a similar thing with like maybe men who have gone through war together.
mhm,
Um, they have this incredible trust in one another.
mhm,
I have a similar thing with the guys that I work with. Um, I could trust them to do some pretty incredible things and feel really comfortable with them.
mhm,
And so, if I could take kind of those two things, I've been through the meat grinder with the Lord, and I've been to the depths, and He was there with me. And so I know and I have confidence no matter where I am in my circumstance of life that I could be immobile and crippled and God is still with me. Or
mhm,
I could be 100 feet in the air climbing a tree and I know the Lord is with me. And so I think having those experiences, it's kind of being tested by fire, and then you realize, okay, it may not be, roses and sunshine right now, but it's even more sweeter to know that the Lord is with me, even when I'm at my literal weakest. And so um, I think that was probably one of the bigger takeaways of just knowing that regardless of what you can do, God is with you. Um,
Hmm. I love.
that was really big.
Yeah, I had 49 days to think, and I just played worship music
Yeah.
even when I was going to sleep, just to, you know, you're going through a storm, and you
Mhm.
do feel like you just described that, he's always with you,
Mm.
and you see things that remind you of that. I
Yeah.
had a girl, a lady, she was a nurse, and this was the start of the Ukraine war. She was from
Mm.
Ukraine, and we
Mm.
got talking. She was a believer, and so we had some conversations about just those kind of things. And she said to me, she goes, "Pete, can I share something personal with you?" And I said, "Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah. Yeah.
And she says, "This kind of stroke you had?" And I said, "Well, not really, but
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing right now." She said, "Most don't survive.
Mm.
And if they do, they're a lot worse than you."
Yeah.
Going like, "What?" Like total paralyzed? Like
Yeah.
I'm sitting there with no left side, not eating, not can't do anything on my own.
Right.
And it just kind of woke me up to the fact of that second chance that we get
Hmm.
sometimes, that I'm not going to take anything for granted.
Right.
I'm going to go after every day like it's my last,
Yeah.
because I got a second chance. My question to you, and I've said this to you before, you probably asked so many good questions. And I always say, man, how does a person develop that curiosity? Because I see it older people, but I
Mm.
don't always see it the younger generation. How did you notice at any time, or did somebody like
Mm.
help you to have that curiosity? What kind of developed that skill?
Right. I think that what's fun about this is the context. Pete and I are in a small group, and one of the things that I like to think about before we start small group is just a stimulating question. And sometimes I got to be careful with it because we're on a time limit, and I can get Pete off the rails for 20 minutes, and it's great. Um, but back to the question. One, I think it takes good people to bring out good questions. And so, Pete, you're one of those good people that kind of you set the stage well. And so there's got to be that. There's got to be good people. Um, I I'm 29 as of Wednesday. This curiosity started, um, I think, with my brother. My brother's about 7 years older than me,
Mhm.
and we kind of grew up in uh, the shadows of 9/11, the war on terror, um, and just kind of this huge shift in culture. And it really felt like a clash of Western culture with extremism from the Middle East. And I remember my brother coming back from Afghanistan. He was in the military for about 8 years. And he came back and he started telling me stories about um, kids from Afghanistan. And I started going, well, man, I what if we talk to people more and sit down? And so I started kind of running through these scenarios in my head of like, man, what if I got an opportunity to talk to people? surely, and this is maybe idealistic, surely we could settle our differences if we just sit around a campfire and talk. And so I think that's where it started. And then as I got older, when I was in uh, college, I just had really good opportunities, whether it was in university or traveling abroad with my church, or university opportunities to those places and just meeting people. And I grew up in the South, and I've mostly spent most of my time as a growing up in the South, traveling throughout the states a little bit here and there, but never have I been in Kosovo and a Balkan culture, or Morocco, or even the West Bank, and
Mhm.
thinking these are just totally different places. And so I think one of it is like an excitement to learn from other people.
Mhm.
Um, Two is having some, and not that I'm a incredibly humble guy, but having some humility in going in. You asked me who taught me this. A friend of mine on one of my trips, Lisa Eastland. She would always tell us, uh, "You, we're not saying you're not smart or intelligent, that you don't have something to bring to these interactions, but come in as a learner, ask these
Mhm.
questions, and you will win favor." And she was 100% accurate, hit the bullseye with that one.
Mm.
It opened up doors. We could have whole podcasts for those doors that got opened. It was
Mhm.
incredible. Um, and then I think the latter part of that, I think the curiosity and the excitement, um, I think that's the Holy Spirit. Um, I've had so many kind of uh, pre-interactions with people where I feel this like tug of like, hey, go this way.
Mhm.
And so I think as a follower of Christ, some of those things um, is the Holy Spirit leading us. And
Mm.
if we are the body,
Mhm.
there's a tongue, and the tongue's got to ask questions. So I, does that answer your question, Pete?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious about people's journey. And I say, we can be Christians and sit in the pew and be on the sidelines,
Hmm.
or we can get fully engaged and be in the game. And that's just what you said, following the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
When did you see that in your life? Did you have that kind of, approach to
Hmm.
things where you're listening more to the Holy Spirit, you're more in tune with not Colin's
Hmm.
plan, but God's plan for you? Was there any like time when you're traveling, or just
Hmm.
anything you can like say, yeah, there was a shift that happened?
Um, I think of two um, points. The first one, I think it was around 16 or 17. I was younger.
Mhm.
And I just started going to this church in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Um, and they were doing just this night of worship there. And I remember sitting, and I had a vision. And I was in a dark place. I couldn't move. And I was hearing language that I didn't understand. And I kept on asking the Lord, I was like, what is this? And what is after this? Like, show me what comes next. And nothing. I would get nothing of, prayer, discernment. And it felt like, oh, this was the end here. And I kind of maybe jumped the gun on it, but I was like, I'm going to die in a cave somewhere. And I was terrified of it. Um, but as time kind of unfolded, um, and I started to trust the Lord more, be curious of what where are you trying to lead me in this. It ended up that I was kind of on one of my first trips abroad. Um, I was in Kosovo, which is a pretty culturally mixed country,
Mhm.
but predominantly Muslim. I like to say that it's a Muslim country with a bar scene. It's really funny.
Mm.
Um, and It was the month of Ramadan, which is like a really important month for Muslims. And we'd been there for a couple days, and a friend of mine, Tashriq, that I've made, he'd been connected with us, knew our group and all stuff. He invited me and two other guys uh, for prayer at a mosque, and I was like incredibly curious, and so I thought I was going to go and observe. And we went there, and he was like, "No, you're actually going to participate with me, and you're going to go through the motions with me." And I had a kind of a moment where it's like, Patrick, I don't know if I can do that. And I felt this tremendous peace from the Lord. And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, I know you're praying to me. You're not here for the rest of this. Like, I know this is between um, me and the Lord.
Mhm.
Um, and I was sitting in that moment, and I knew that prayer was probably like 15 minutes. This one was about an hour and 30 minutes. And you cannot leave. You have to stay in the line. It is really important that you stay there. And it was this beautiful moment where it was almost like the vision. It was I'm in a dark place. It was very dim. It was late at night. I can't move. I'm hearing these words that through some language studying I started to understand, and I just started weeping. I was like, Lord, you didn't bring me to a cave somewhere to die. You brought me to this place um, as your agent, as an agent of life. And after that time, we were there for an hour, hour and a half. The imam, who's like imagine like a pastor or priest,
Mhm.
invited us to his home, and we stayed there and shared the gospel with him, his son, other members of the community for hours, and that started to build this incredible relationship. Towards the end of my time there, um, our friend Sabit, whose home I just went to, um, I remember asking him, I'm like, Sabit, what will it take for you to be a Christian? And we kind of went through all this stuff and talked, and he kind of settled on something. And in Islam, at the final judgment day, uh, there's kind of this process that happens as everyone will stand before God and bow down, and kind of in a similar way that you see them praying. They bow down, and then you see the line of the prophets, and it starts from biblical characters that we're familiar with, and it ends with Muhammad bowing down before God. And I asked Sabit, I remember asking him, Sabit, what would it look like if when you're doing this, it just stops at Jesus and he's just standing there? And he to this day, it's something that I pray about regularly. He would go, well, then I would have to worship him as God. And it's like, okay, Lord, what do we got to do? Like, um, keep on showing yourself to this man. And so that was, that conversation was maybe about 7 years ago. It's something I still pray about regularly.
Mhm. Oh, that's so good.
And yeah, so that's one instance
Yeah.
of where it's like the Spirit gives vision, and um, and it kind of brings it into this point. And then I see, okay, Lord, like this is what you want, is you want life for people. Um,
Mhm.
so
What do you think? Like, I love that story, and
yeah.
I had a friend of mine, and she texted me this. She's probably close to 90. She's at least in
Yeah.
her late 80s, and we've known each other for 25 years. And she's a believer, and we always have discussions when I do talk to her about her journey, her life.
Yeah.
But anyway, she sends me this text, and the headline is "Meet my new coach," and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
she's hired coaches and coaches, so I'm thinking, okay, she's hired a coach, no big deal. So I don't even look at it because I just was busy, and she texts me like a couple days later, "Hey, did you meet my coach?" And
Yeah.
I said, "No, I haven't, but I will since you asked me the second time." Well, anyway, I click on it, and it's not what I thought.
Yeah.
It it was I think he was from India, but he was a preacher, and
Mhm.
he was talking about the church today
Mm,
is where we work.
mm,
And because people have a preconceived idea of walking into a church,
mm,
they how we live our life and how we talk and minister and share the gospel in everything that we do, our
mm,
work makes a significant difference. Do you find that you're in the service business, you're always talking to people. If you're not in a tree, you're doing all your managing and servicing. What do you wake up looking for opportunities? Do you pray for opportunities?
mm.
How are you using your work to share the good news?
That's a good question. Short answer, I wake up and I've been trying to do this more of praying for opportunity.
Mhm.
And then kind of the long-winded answer, uh, just a little bit of background. I have two jobs. One is my own business, that is a tree removal business. And then the other, I'm a foreman for a utility contractor. So both of those are pretty physical trades, pretty physical jobs,
Mhm.
but they have a very different setting, um, which allows for different opportunity. Part of the tree business that I've noticed is there's two parts to it that I just really kind of hone into is the guys that I get to bring onto my crews, I get to handpick them. Um, and sometimes they're believers, sometimes they're not. And what I've noticed with men in particular, except for this moment, Pete, is we have a much easier time talking and getting into deeper conversation if we're doing something. And
Mhm.
so, usually with the tree business, we're all hooked up with radios and helmets, and there's rhythms within the day where there's pretty intense moments where we're really focused, and then there can be slower, a little bit more mundane where we get to talk. And so that's one opportunity that I've seen, and it can be really fruitful. And the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of the guys from that is how fulfilled they feel. And there's this sense of camaraderie and being a part of something a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, and then, exerting themselves to their kind of full extent because it can be pretty challenging.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think where the gospel comes into the point of that is I get to put on display one trust for the Lord, um, but also I think it is so important to keep a cool head. Like if you're the guy that is always getting angry and frustrated at work, it is it's hard to see Christ shine through that. And that happens to me.
Mhm.
It's one of my bigger weaknesses is keeping a cool head. And so um, that's something that God has grown me in and will continue to grow me in is being level-headed. And then kind of the second part of that I've stumbled into and just really enjoyed is on the customer aspect, um, of usually we're doing residential jobs, and so people are inviting us into their homes. And if sometimes people are more chatty than others, most of the time, if they're older, they want to talk more. They want to sit down. They want to get to know you, and I think that's a really awesome part of the job is being able to sit down with someone you may not know well in their own home and chat with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's been several members from our church that I've gone to do tree work for, and then at the end of the job, I get to sit down with them in their home and learn something more about them, and just kind of grow uh, closer together. And so that's something that has been uh, there's fellowship, um, characters of a godly man, um, and just you get to show the Holy Spirit and Jesus a little bit more. Um, and then on the other job is more commercial, and that's usually heavy construction, a lot of moving parts, a lot of different trades. It can be a lot more intense because you're juggling a lot more different variables, and our owners make it known and that we're Christians. This is a Christian company, and so we want to put that on display. Um, and we want to provide good service for our customers. Of course, any business wants to provide good service for their customers, but we do that in a way that we handle ourselves on a job site. And so, if I could go back to the cool-headedness, um, if you walk on any job site in Atlanta, you will probably hear someone cussing, screaming, and someone getting frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And to an extent, I understand that, especially in the summertime when it gets hot out, heads get hot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what our customers have through the years noticed about us is that we try our best not to be like that. We try to just show Christ. And so it's kind of a shock when you see a crew of pipe layers, and they're professionally dressed. They're not screaming and cussing at each other. It is um, they're happy. They're enjoying their time there. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's stuff like that where I've had superintendents joke when some of my other when the other foremen come on job sites and they go, "Oh, Jonah's here, guys, watch your mouth. Don't be respectful around these guys." And it's funny because it's like over the years they've seen this, and they have this reputation for you know uh, setting a standard, I think,
Yeah.
and it's rare. It's rare to see that, and it's cool when you see kind of a Christian standard
Yeah.
taking precedent in a industry where that may not be can be hard to set the
Yeah,
standard.
but I can understand it. I have never worked in that kind of industry, so I
Mhm.
don't know the day to day thinking of that. What would you say? I am, and you're good at relationships.
Mhm.
A 29-year-old Colin talking to a 19-year-old Colin. What advice would you give your 19-year-old self about relationships in the last 10 years?
I think, and this is something that I knew at 19, the first thing I would tell myself is I might a little smack on the cheek and quote a proverb and say, "Do not waste your strength on chasing women." And that would have saved a lot of heartache and a lot of um, stumbling.
Mhm.
And kind of the part of that is I don't think that proverb is saying don't find a good wife and pursue a godly woman. That proverb is particular saying don't chase women, plural. Don't go after
Mm-hmm.
that. And so that would have been probably the number one thing I would have told myself as a young man. Um, and then um, things that I wish I would have started my tree business earlier. I wish I started it at a fairly young age. I wish I would have started it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I started when I was 24. I wish I have started doing it when I was around maybe 20, 21. I'd had enough experience at that time where I could have started doing little jobs. But
Mm-hmm.
when you are at the helm, you learn so much faster.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely value from observing and being trained and mentored by someone, and I was, and I still am. I
Mhm.
get to learn from that man almost quite frequently, and but there's taking what you have learned and implementing that, you will grow so much faster. Um, um, so I think those would have been take a little more risk in the business world and take less risk chasing women.
I love
I,
and good advice. I love that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be respectful of your time.
yeah.
So tell our viewers, I have one more question after this. Tell our viewers how can they get a hold of Colin?
Well, the best way is to give me a phone call, or if I don't answer your phone, always leave a text. I think Pete could probably put my phone number in here. Um, that would be the best way. I also have an email, but I might get back to you maybe a couple days. So if you're looking for more of immediate response, a phone number is probably the best way to do that.
That is awesome. It's 678-764-1463 for our audio listeners.
Yes,
So
sir.
Colin, as we wrap up, what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
Um, there are so many things. Um, be curious to where the Holy Spirit is pulling you,
Mm.
and be open to that, and then be excited for where God is going to pull you into your next stage of life. Because when I try to make a plan, it could be cool, or usually it's disappointing. But when not disappointing, but um, it's not everything. But when you really lean into the Lord, there's a deep satisfaction that comes from that. And so just be curious to the voice of the Spirit. That would be my
Love
number
it.
one thing to take away.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
Colin, thank you so much. I'm glad I didn't give up.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Don't give up, Pete.
so thank you so much for being a guest and
Yeah.
sharing your journey with us on this podcast. We appreciate you very much.
Thank